The biggest con man in video game history strikes again. We're coming fresh off of Karl's update video.
Yeah, it was literally released today.
So we huffed it. We snorted it. We snorted it.
I was very interested in what he would say.
Yeah, I don't think I heard anything that I didn't already know, to be totally honest with you. I think he pretty much summed it up in the tweets and community posts that were going up and down during those first, those horrible moments. Yeah, maybe, just for those who are interested, the last video we did on it overperformed for our channel. So thank you, everybody. It's clear that you like drama. A lot of people said, the thumbnail said Karl lost, and they were like, missed opportunity to say Karl lopst.
Yes, exactly.
It's kind of funny. So that'd be fun to go over, like, at the very least, what the series of events were that landed him in hot water in the first place, because I'm struggling a little bit with the chronology. So I think I've got it all written down here to just cut through it. I've reversed engineered it. I've heard both. I've heard the judge. I've heard Karl. I think I've got the full timeline. Okay. Before we proceed, I dug into his voice pretty hard last time we talked about him. I was like, how could you possibly listen? And there was a handful of comments that were like, well, what about your shitty voice, Frankie? I'm not going to defend my voice. If you think I'm nasally, high pitched, I could see that. Like I can, I speak more in the throat, more in the nose, right? Then I'm not way down here like, other people.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I have a beautiful voice either. It sounds like my tongue is swelling up gradually over the course of the recording.
I wasn't attacking Karl's natural speaking voice. I was attacking his unnatural speaking voice. I was attacking whatever it is that compels him. I just listened to him I listened to the video twice. So I've listened to him for an hour, and it's stuck in my fucking head. But he feels compelled to speak in circles. And this is, I think, a communication error. If he took a public speaking class, they would tell him to stop. Even newscasters who have that way of talking. Last week, at May 21st, he went to the school, and what he found there was very difficult. So what you're trained to do with public speaking or with storytelling, or to try to draw the viewer in, is to modulate your voice, have appropriate pausing, build towards a point, and then descend away from that point, right? So you modulate so that the tone of your voice carries the story. You ever have somebody who's telling you what they think is a funny story, and they just laugh the whole time from the beginning of the story, and you're just like, I don't know when to laugh, dude. Like I'm kind of like just fake laughing with you as you do this. So I think this is like the equivalent of fake laughing while talking to me. It doesn't matter which part is important. It doesn't matter which part is unimportant. He's gonna talk to you about it the same way. And I'm like, I don't know why you're doing that.
And then by the halfway through the video, you're glazing over because you don't know what's important.
What we've learned about his audience, anybody who's ever really enjoyed him, from our comments that we saw to all of his tweets and everything else, is that people really like that speedrunning content. To which I say, well, why not just watch that other guy? Who's that other guy?
Summoning Salt?
Summoning Salt, yeah.
But he covers achievements. He doesn't usually cover... Maybe he'll make one quick aside, like, oh, this guy was a cheater, but he doesn't, like, go in depth. He'll, like, mention, like, oh, they thought this was a world record, but it wasn't.
I guess it just feels really good to pretend that you're Walter Cronkite and to, like somebody cheated at us. That's part, like we found ourselves, even after the video was released, like talking in circles, much like Karl himself, about these same kind of several issues about what constitutes defamation and what shouldn't constitute defamation, and who's wrong and who's right. And so we'll get into a little bit of that, because I think that's important here. May 26, 2021, original upload. The biggest con man in video game history strikes again. Billy Mitchell video. And this is the quote. This is the quote that got litigated, okay?
He was forced to remove all of his videos about Mitchell's cheating and paid him a large sum of money. This left him deeply in debt, which required him to find extra work. But with his ongoing health issues, this was all too much of a burden, and he ultimately took his own life. Not that Billy Mitchell would ever care, though. In fact, when Billy Mitchell thought Apollo died earlier, he expressed joy at the thought.
That's the one, okay?
Yep.
The lawsuit against Apollo was just as frivolous as the rest, and Apollo definitely would have won in court, but again, he was extremely ill and couldn't handle the ongoing stress.
I include this one in my analysis because this whole, like, I know what's going to happen in court stuff fucking cooked his goose, right? Because here's the thing about lawsuits. Here's why you don't want to be in a lawsuit, EJ. Here's why you don't want to find yourself in a courtroom. Here's why people settle out of court all the time. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yep.
You don't know what's going to happen because the law is interpreted, especially with like these civil suits that are about behaviors and about like, did the infraction constitute the 4 pillars of defamation? You know, like there are, I was reading up on like, yeah, there's like 4 things that constitute defamation. But even that, like each one of those is interpreted, right? It's like copyright law and anything, you know, so everything's interpreted. And all these things feed into that interpretation. Like, for instance, if the judge notices that you think that you're the Walter Cronkite of YouTube and that you live to ruin people, that'll factor into your sentencing.
Together with his additional online comments about it, were aggravating features of his conduct. He seems to see himself in defending his claim as a crusader against Mr. Mitchell.
Yeah, and even like if the judge is in like a bad mood and he like hears all this stuff, he's like, "Yeah, this guy sucks." Like it's gonna feed into it because judges are humans too, you know. They're
yeah, well, he's trying to assess, and Karl made this point. He's trying to assess the credibility of each individual. So, because somebody's lying or somebody's exaggerating or whatever, and probably didn't help to have a whole YouTube channel full of like, I enjoy ruining people for money. It just makes you look like a douche.
Specifically, Billy Mitchell too. Yeah.
He says, "Yeah, I did put out a misstatement. I did put out false information about the fact that Apollo Legend spent money in that trial because no money ever exchanged hands." And we'll talk about that in a moment. But I implied that the stress or, the sequence of events may have, and there was some other YouTuber who said like, some might even say that maybe this caused it.
Like I mentioned at the start of the video, there's a good chance that Apollo had to pay Billy a large amount of money in the settlement, and rumors online suggest it to be anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 if this is what happened.
Yeah, and in the video that he put out, he had that clip of the YouTuber, and I remember even just as I was listening to it, like, that's how you should say that.
Yes.
It's like, there's rumors that, like, allegedly that this is or something along those lines. And even Karl, after saying, is like, I could have used more delicate language like that or something.
Yeah, you really could have. But like the thing is, the reason that you deserve the spanking is because you have enjoyed speaking carelessly. It's kind of served you up to this point, and now like you were liked because you were this bold, brash, hard ass on people. He definitely made a false statement about money exchanging hands, but he didn't explicitly say that it led to the suicide of the guy. But he did say all that stuff about like, I'm sure that Billy wouldn't mind if he died, which like, come on, that's...
I deliberately used words like and but to connect these events. I didn't use words like because or as a result of.
Yeah, he said he's like, I just said them like, I wasn't using words like because, or I was just using and but.
Okay, your honorable jobst.
And put it right after another, so you'd make the assumption that that's what I was saying. If you did make that assumption, that's on you.
Not the best defense. And throughout the video, he tries to maintain this like, look, I'm hearing your feedback and I'm changing for the better. But then he does kind of go through and rationalize every single thing that he did, but then pretends that he's not playing that game. Pride.
It's pride.
I get it. I do. We have a natural tendency to be like, well, wait, no. And I should be clear. Like, most of what he says holds muster, but he still needs to take complete responsibility for the inferences that were made, intentional or otherwise.
Yeah.
Not to mention the statements that were made in the first place that got him in trouble. So June 4th, 2021, a month later, Keemstar, that's when he gets inserted into the story, contacts Karl and says the Apollo paying a large sum of money is false, and Billy's very upset. And Karl, I think tell me if I'm wrong, EJ, I think he trims the segment on the live video. Or maybe he takes the whole thing down and re-uploads without it.
I don't know what the specifics are, but he does trim out the segment. Well, I don't know exactly if he re-uploaded it or if he just trimmed it out with the editor or whatever.
And his rationale is that, well, I did get the information about money exchanging hands from Reddit, and while Reddit is obviously not the most credible source of information because it's just a bunch of people talking, inferences could be made that the guy posting knew what he was talking about. Plus, this other YouTuber talked about it. I think overall Karl admits this was not a great way to report on information from these sources.
It seemed that he definitely regrets that, and it seems like he that's the lesson he's learning for the moving forward.
But there's kind of a problem. A few days after the trim, Billy Mitchell uploads a response video. He says that Karl made false and defamatory claims, that he implied that, basically Billy murdered Apollo. And then Karl, because he was like, well, since the trim out didn't help anything, and because I actually still think it's true. So this is one of his fatal flaws right here. Basically, Billy's video caused a defensive reaction in Karl, and he puts the video back up in its full form.
That was probably like the biggest mistake right there, is actually doubling down, being like, oh, well, my trimming didn't do anything, I'm going to put it back up.
Because he's like, oh, this dipshit Billy Mitchell always sues people, so what do I care? They'll all be frivolous. And, Karl now says, even though this claim turned out to be false, I believed it to be true at the time. I guess he's pointing that out because knowingly lying versus getting something wrong, it's misinformation versus disinformation, right?
I believe that he believed it.
Yeah, me too. Well,
it's not a lie if you believe it.
I think it's more like he hated Billy, and so he believed anything bad that he heard about Billy. And so that's careless.
Yeah, it's careless.
So he goes and re-uploads it. Never mind. Fuck him. And then he receives an email from Apollo Legend's brother, a grieved brother, saying, well, actually, Billy Mitchell initially requested money in the settlement. Apollo was unable to pay. So in the final settlement, there was no payout. And Apollo's videos were removed, no money exchanged hands. So at that point, once Karl's brother reaches out, then Karl removes the re-uploaded video and replaces it with a version where the segment is edited out permanently. So he does re-upload it, but without that whole section that I initially read. From this point on, the false claim never reappears in any Karl content. Until today, I guess, when he recapped it. And then, in a separate video in August 2021, do I have that right? In the video, The Greatest Feat in Video Game History, Karl says, I made the claim that Apollo Legend paid money to Billy Mitchell as part of their settlement. I sincerely apologize for providing false information. I do not believe that it is ever justified to lie or mislead. He makes that statement.
Is that the one that's like at the end of like a Dark Souls video or something like that?
Yes, it's 45 seconds at the end of the video. And and one of the distinctions is he apologized to the viewers, but not to Billy, which may have inspired Billy to keep going. So that's basically all the major facts of the case. And I would say his doubling down really probably hurt him ultimately. So then the question is, why did he intentionally mislead, or what could he have done to let people know, hey, this is actually a lawsuit about Apollo Legend and not about cheating or about, Billy's video game playing?
Billy was sending more lawsuits about like the cheating allegations too.
No, actually, that was a helpful piece of it. That was a helpful piece of information I didn't know before, where he was like, well, the GoFundMe was actually kind of a preemptive measure to prepare for maybe many lawsuits, some of which may have been about cheating. And
it wasn't really lawsuits. It was like what those letters are before you send a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Billy sent like 3 more of those.
So he knew he would be on the hook with Billy in some way. And that probably, getting bombarded by letters, that probably inspired him. He was like, I better fight this guy or else he's going to do this forever. So now it's a month later. So now he's retracted it fully. He has apologized for saying the wrong statement about money exchanging hands. So I guess to the extremely astute, that somebody listening very closely, they know that Apollo Legend is part of the deal here. But you have to listen for it. A month later, puts up a video on being sued and canceled. Karl announces he's being sued by Billy Mitchell. Says, I'm going to keep my cards a lot closer to my chest. I'm not going to talk about what the lawsuit is about. He does not say it's about Apollo Legend. The phrasing implies he's withholding details intentionally. So he doesn't disclose it then, and the audience is left to assume. And like we said last time, totally fair to be like, hey, just so everybody knows, I'm not going to tell you about the.
Yeah, you're not supposed to talk about your case if you're, actively engaged in litigation.
Now let's jump 2 years later. That was September 2021. August 2023, in a video responding to Billy's claim that the GoFundMe was a scam, he then says, in this video, I fully allow Billy to explain why he is suing me. And I even say myself that the lawsuit relates to Apollo Legend. So he actually did say it was related to Apollo Legend in that video.
However, in this video, I allow Billy to fully explain why he is suing me, and I even say myself that the lawsuit relates to Apollo Legend.
But that was after the GoFundMe had been launched and all this. And again, it's kind of tucked into content. Going completely out of your way to be like, I want you to know what this is about, and harming your defense, because he makes the good point too of like in a situation like this, they're gonna crawl through YouTube comments for anybody where it's like, see, people did think this about me and it did cause me damage. And so you don't want to fan the flames, but he did fan the flames because he kept making videos and he kept doubling down and he was doing this stuff. And he himself, by the end of this video, is like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have kept talking about the lawsuit generally. Maybe I should not have been talking about the lawsuit. Because instead what he did was he didn't say what it was about, but he did keep talking about the lawsuit. And so that does create meaning. That, you know, that's why if you polled 1,000 people who knew about this, 1,000 of them would have said it's about cheating. It's about
like like even on our Discord, people are like, oh, I thought it was about cheating. I thought it was about like almost everybody said some version of that.
And I believe that, you know, I may be charitable to Karl, like I'm charitable to Gerard, no pun intended. He wasn't so charitable himself. I do think that it's one of those things where he was probably, you know, just really inside this lawsuit the whole time. And he probably didn't think about like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to take away from this that this is about something that it's not. Or I'm sure if he could do it all over again, he would have either made it more clear or talked about it less, but not this in-betweeny stuff that got him in trouble.
He did reference there was an image going around where he's like, I fed all of my like case data to AI and it said that I'm definitely going to win. He did say that was a joke. And I thought that too. When I looked at that message, I'm like, that seems tongue in cheek. That seems like you're goofing around with friends in Discord. That does not seem like he's like, I am so stupid that I'm going to feed all my stuff to... I thought that was a goof, and he confirmed it was, in fact, a goof with his friends.
You have to give people a little bit more credit. Like, generally, like, you know, people are prideful, they're cocky, they are high on their own supply. But like, you know, you watch a couple of Karl videos and you're like, this guy's not dumb, right? I mean, this is a reasonably high IQ individual, probably. So when you see a statement like, name one time AI ever got anything wrong, everybody knows that AI gets things wrong, like almost like by design. Like it is not a factual, it's not a like a fact-based platform. It's a platform that does predictive wording. You know, it's so I knew that he knew that, and I knew it was just a joke. But I also, by the way, don't blame him for feeding it all of the facts of the case and trying to get some information out of it and see if there's another angle there or you know, what does the system think? I probably would try that too.
Well, yeah, at the end he did say that this whole experience was a wake-up call for him.
Yeah,
there's many lessons he'll learn. So, and then he said, assuming that I do adequate self-reflection, it could help his channel. So I think that's true. I think that he's definitely going to be more careful when he's dunking on these speedrunners to, you know, couch some of his language or whatever.
I have a pretty serious problem with one aspect of this whole thing, which is, so he says, reasonably, I should have made it more clear what it was about, but I couldn't, because it would have harmed my case. But then you went on and collected money from a GoFundMe without telling them what the GoFundMe was for. They instead were left to infer it from you. And it's like, dude, like the minute you're collecting money from somebody, you got to tell them what they're giving money to. You have to, or else this is gonna happen, obviously. Like you have to divulge details, right? I mean, otherwise this whole idea of like crowdfunding for my legal defense thing doesn't work. It barely works to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird to begin with, but I mean, he did use it for his legal defense, but he just wasn't clear on what it was.
Did you think it was interesting when he was like, I shouldn't have talked about the suit at all, but it's just like not in my nature. I've you know.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, in hindsight, it may have been better to not talk about the lawsuit at all, but I'm not sure if that was ever going to happen. It's just not in my nature, and this was the biggest thing impacting my life and this channel for multiple years.
So when we put up our video, we passively kind of were like, hey, you know, I thought he was unfair to Gerard. And they were like, we got enough comments that were like, we agree with everything you say about Karl, but we could do without the Gerard dick sucking or whatever. Let me try to help you with this one more fucking time. One person was like, listen to how much he has contempt for his audience. And I was like, I have contempt for you.
I love the rest of you guys.
You young buck with all your fucking brilliant ideas. But yes, many of you I think are wonderful. We make the videos for you. It reminds me of the Quentin Tarantino clip. But you know what, Jan? I don't think I made it for you.
people are having fun seeing. Maybe not you, but you know what, Jan? I don't think I made it for you.
Why do you insist on going up there and sucking Gerard's dick? Because it's so much fun, Jan. Get it?
Why the need for so much gruesome, graphic violence? Why not let us imagine
Because
a little
it's so
of it?
much fun, Jan. Get
Really?
it?
Ah, but see, you don't understand. You think that I'm defending Gerard for keeping all the money, when I'm actually saying that he didn't commit fraud. See, you're all mixed up.
But see, Jan, you're all messed up because you're talking about real life.
Oh,
and I'm
I see.
talking
And kids
about
at
the
12?
movies.
I think that Karl made statements about Gerard that are not provable. And what happened during that whole fiasco was that Karl asserted them like they had already been proven. And the person who proved it was Karl himself, our reliable fucking narrator. Sometimes Karl talks out of his ass. And in the Gerard case, he did that lots of times. He would say things like, he would have a thumbnail that says fraud. Right on it.
Literally fraud on
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
lies, fraud, cheat. You know, so he made multiple statements across his 5-6 videos about it that were like, charity fraud is taking place here. This meets the criteria of charity fraud.
This is the textbook definition of charity fraud.
Muda, our boring sidekick, did not do that. He was sure to qualify statements. He would say things like, if this is in fact true, if it looks the way it seems to look to me with the current evidence, then this could be charity fraud. That's a fine statement. That's a totally fine statement. Of being like, there's charity fraud and he's off to the gulags is just
Please
annoying.
contact the IRS. Here's their numbers that you can contact them to let them know about Gerard's family's charity fraud.
Look inside his refrigerator. You'll find a giant bag of cash that he's been snacking on since 2017.
Yeah, and to be super clear, I don't really like Gerard's content. I don't really. I've never found him to be a great personality, and I do think his family was probably being irresponsible with charity money.
Obviously the case. To then attribute motive, like, oh yeah, that golf tournament, he's siphoning off money. Oh yeah, the whole thing was a big plan to steal all the charity money. It's like, you can't prove that, dude. And like, even like the some of the discrepancies and stuff that Karl thinks he found, like they were reasonably well explained, maybe not completely well explained, but there was like an explanation. And at the time we were like, I don't know, like maybe that's a lie, maybe not. I guess we'll see after an audit. It's like, well, audits have taken place since then. The IRS has not been further investigating the Khalil family as far as I know. I believe he's passed all of his audits. It's a year and a half later now. Certainly his career is in tatters, and probably rightfully so. You don't just hang on to that. But also, by the way, I think I found out, even retaining the funds, as long as like they're I don't think that he did violate any laws by keeping the funds. It was sketchy behavior. It was dishonest behavior, et cetera, et cetera. Suspicious even, because why hasn't it been donated, right? All good reasons for people to be suspicious. But there was never any evidence that it was actually like intentional malicious fraud. And that was Gerard's claim, and it seems to have passed muster after all this time. I have no doubt that Gerard could probably pursue like a defamation case. He won't. He probably shouldn't, because, dragging this out into courts, it's expensive for everybody. And it's also like, it just further harms everybody's reputations.
And I'm sure they don't even want people to really scrutinize their books. So
Yeah, and probably they don't want
to leave it alone.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I don't know if like how many people realize that a lot of times the reason that cases settle out of court is because like one party doesn't want to go through discovery. Like maybe you don't want to show your company's like emails to the world,
and it might not even be for like criminal reasons. Like if, journalists get a hold of it and get it out, it could be embarrassing.
Every time I defended him, they leapt to be like, you don't understand. Karl said that the golf money's gone. I'm like, I don't give a fuck what Karl said. I need you to understand that just because Karl makes a video doesn't make it fact. Like, please get off Reddit, you freak.
We don't have any disdain for your audience. Just
But you know what, Jen? I don't think I made it for you. Just keep it in your pants is all I'm telling you, people. Keep it in your pants. Wait for some facts. Engaging in the conversation is fun, but don't assume the very, very, very worst about everybody all the time. That's all I have like an inclination to be like, well, maybe there's an explanation for that. Almost every time I hear about anything.
Well, yeah, even when that picture of Karl saying, "Yeah, I fed AI," and people were like, "Look, he's so stupid." It's like I immediately was like,
right, exactly.
I'm gonna put the most charitable explanation for this first because
which is more logical, actually.
Yeah.
It actually is more logical to be like, I'm sure he doesn't think that.
Because it's so much fun, Jan. Get it?
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.